What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers. Subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff. Arm yourselves, life stuff. I made some jokes and references to Camarilla traditional BDSM in that cardio for fat guys video, both because it served the point of the video and also because it makes for good and fun references, but it's almost like someone who works in a field similar to yours and you haven't seen them for a while, so you're more inclined to reference them positively, but then you see them in person again and you remember you detest them. And I detest traditional BDSM, structured BDSM. I was watching a bunch of those insider mob interview videos, and then one about BDSM came up, and I started watching it. And boy, did I get annoyed quickly once she started whipping out all the little BDSM terms. Oh, she got a PhD in sexology. She knows her stuff. And whenever you have a visceral, emotional reaction to something, anything, that is a good indicator you should sit down and think about it for a little bit. You don't just, what did Patrice say? Don't let a feeling have you, you have the feeling. Think about why you're feeling these things. So you understand why you're feeling what you're feeling, and so you can do something useful with this feeling. A feeling, even an intense feeling, or especially an intense feeling, on its own, is not helpful to you. So I did a little thinking, and I think I've pinned down. There are so many reasons, but for now, my main reasons for disliking BDSM, traditional Camarilla BDSM, viscerally, is it destroys sexuality, or at least any of the parts I care about. I understand different strokes for different folks, but to me, sexuality is not a system that you study and learn and enroll in because it's phony and it's keying into conscious constructions. Like gender roles, for instance. Gender roles, as we think about them, are socially constructed. However, on this channel, we are on the binary side of things, but I'm a lot more interested in biological gender. As in, what do people do? What are all the different things people do, feel inclined to do, in the absence of these fucking constructions? You're going to let society's ideas of what you should be dictate what you are? You have zero interest in figuring out what you are, independent of society, of what people tell you you should be? Which is another reason contemporary queer culture is loaded with bullshit, because it's not breaking the chains, you're just imposing even more complicated chains and making getting any real work done that much harder. And that's a different conversation, but the broad strokes are or line up with why I dislike traditional BDSM or structured BDSM so much. When you are dealing with traditional BDSM people or investigating traditional BDSM, there are a number of things you'll notice. One, first and foremost, it seems like many of these people are not into fetishy shit naturally. It's not naturally occurring within them. They don't have that dog in them. They never did. So they've constructed a prosthetic dog, and then they tell themselves, they tell each other, they tell the world, that's what the dog is. And it's not. It's false. It's a construction. So you, who are not even naturally inclined to this, are not just shitting on the actual dog, you're convincing the wider world what you do is the real thing. And it is a thing, but it's not this soul searching thing. And it's not even just a PR thing. What happens when someone who has that natural inclination, but doesn't have the ability to investigate it for themselves, finds you? You're going to lead them away from what they are, away from satisfaction and understanding, and make their finding themselves and finding satisfaction that much harder. Another thing you'll notice is this culture of grooming. When you deal with BDSM dudes who are purportedly straight, they're always going to emphasize how straight they are to you. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And in my investigations, there's a lot of weird, fucked up abuse going on in traditional BDSM spheres. It's not even the good kind of abuse, it's not even the good kind of gay. Another thing you'll notice is this obsession with institutional organization and thinking, i.e., there's a process for everything and you don't know the process, so you must be taught the process, taught to you by people who have no connection with the truth, the tool that is sexuality, that also you must abide by in all situations. And I don't see this enforced overtly as much, but there's also this attitude that they have that it seems like they want you to adopt. It's very culty. And again, not culty in a good way. These aren't just annoying personality quirks. You want a quick way to sniff out someone who's quietly into BDSM, the institutional sort, I mean. They're very confident and pushy about rules. And this goes for, subs and masters. They're all like this. And I think one of the reasons they're like this, that their sexual conduct carries over into daily conduct, is because of how potent sex is as a tool. And I suppose this doesn't just relate to BDSM. You can tell by interacting with someone whether or not their sexuality is in a good place. And when I say good, I mean operating in that mystical, soul-searching capacity. Are you using it as a way to discover and connect, to understand, or is it, to you, a thing? And then you get all these BDSM terms. They want to control your language and teach you to have your language controlled, because controlling language is an effective way to get people to do what you want or to prevent them from doing the things they want. And that's unfortunate, not just because it's a control tool, but also because it limits a person's ability to examine themselves, to use sexuality the way I think it should be used. So the way they approach sexuality in the abstract and sex in the physical, it's all institutional. And we've said that repeatedly in this video. We've said that a number of times in the past. Another reason that's a problem, or at least distasteful to me, is it totally eliminates the human and individual aspects. It's not about discovering yourself or discovering your partner, discovering one another, tuning into the frequency of reality. It's about observing formalities. Formalities constructed by anyone but you. It's a corrupted sacrament. You've taken the power and the joy of a strengthening ritual, of an understanding ritual, and tricked it into obedience to something false and man-made. It's parasitizing. It's siphoning the energy away from you, from people. And in the bigger picture, I am sure this all isn't a mistake. There's probably a reason so many people practice BDSM this way. I'm sure it's great for bug people. I'm sure for them it is heartening knowing they don't need to deal with the stress of their own sexuality. They can get someone else to tell them how to do it. So they don't need to feel terrified of themselves, of not knowing themselves, or, God forbid, needing to learn somebody else as an individual, not as a component of a thing. But on that intuitive level, I am sure there is some dreadful mystical component to this. It doesn't feel directly connected with all the shit we rant and rave about, but it is in line, and it does feel like there is some minor demon of bad sexuality, shitty sexuality, benefiting from this. And they're very difficult to deal with as people, not just in the BDSM realm. Because another thing I find they do, again, the subs and the DOMs, is they will push. And this shouldn't come as a surprise because they are not attuned with themselves, they aren't attuned with other people, and in fact, through one of the most important avenues in life, they are being taught not to look at people or themselves as individuals. They'll practice BDSM values in normal life, as in they will attach themselves to some this is the way things need to be done system, and when people don't fall in line, they will push them until they do fall in line, or until they get a reality check. But reality checks are rarely good for anybody. That's a reason to avoid them. But that's also a truth/reality issue, which is something we're concerned with. These people put man-made ideas of the way things are, not just are supposed to work, but to their minds do work. This is the way, this is the only way. And if it were just their inability to deal with the way things actually work, that would be one thing. But it's worse when they try to pressure you into following systems that are different from truth, and you're trying to figure out the way things are, not what someone tells you they should be, or what they think they are. That's annoying in all cases, and I'm sure you can see parallels arising, and I wonder if there's a reason for those parallels, culturally, statistically, but here it's annoying sexually. And I'm looking at this from a submissive point of view. Doms don't know how to dominate. Their power is never based in anything. They don't know how to make you want to be dominated. They aren't strong enough or have enough resources to dominate you against your will. And therefore, it's not really power, because the only thing that makes them powerful is they're saying they're powerful and expecting people to follow along. And I guess a lot of bugs do follow along, so that they're never challenged. And then when they run into a challenge, they're like deer in headlights. They're useless. And in their uselessness, this pathetic, tantrumy, or pouty, or vacant attitudes they take, you see by the facts they haven't tapped into it. Because good DOMs, it's like they're working magic. They are naturally inclined, self-practiced, never relying on the handbook or the rules. They have an energy and a power all their own, and they have learned how to use it. Because to them, it's not just plying a trade, it's their soul. And when you're dealing with these people, however few they are, you can feel the difference in their essence. They are attuned with truth. They are seekers. And with them, you can get something done physically and emotionally, spiritually, because they're here to understand and enjoy themselves and understand and enjoy you. Because what is fetishy sexuality, at least from my point of view? It's not strictly or even mostly sensation. It's certainly not reading out of a handbook. We find the straight path without a book, even in nut busting. To me, it's all intuition. Let's paint a picture. It's all mist. You're armed with a series of interests you don't totally understand. Sometimes they get swapped out, sometimes they fly into your hand, sometimes they fly out of your hand. You have them, you have an idea of what they are, but you don't totally understand them, and you don't totally understand yourself. And then opposite you, somewhere in the mist, is a person. You can sense they have these interests floating around them, also obscured by the fog. Your job is to throw your interests at theirs or where you think theirs are until you can hit them. But it's not just working out what to throw where one time because people's interests and needs change. But you do this for a while, and eventually you start noticing patterns. Which things are where, when, even though you can't exactly see them. What works, why doesn't it work, at this time or this way. And in doing this, you end up developing an understanding of, or a better understanding, let's say, of this entire situation. Not just of yourself, not just of this other person, but this entire obscured ecosystem. Because this entire arrangement is an animal. It's not just one thing or even a series of one things. It's all always changing. But the more you connect with it, the more you connect with this other person, understand yourself, understand how all this works, you develop a relationship with this whole thing. In a sense, you haven't apprehended the unapprehendable, but you've developed enough of an understanding you can apprehend the unapprehendability of the unapprehendable. This example's going a bit all over the place. Your sexuality is a three-sided lens. It helps you view parts of yourself you can't normally view. It helps you view parts of another person's soul you can't normally view, maybe they can't even normally view. It helps you view the world or aspects of the world you can't normally view. And while you'll never be able to pin any one thing down perfectly, it's like learning how to deal with things on their terms. Or it, even if you don't understand it, it gets you closer to the way things work. What is it, the Tao? If you can read it or write it, then it isn't the true Tao, it's something like that. And there's a ton of carryover, so if you have institutional BDSM on the other side that is not just false but also actively leading you away from truth, this sexuality, fetishy sexuality, is a way for you to get closer to truth via a compound movement. As in, if you focus only on bench press, you weren't working your biceps specifically, but your biceps will be stronger. And in the truth game, sexuality is a key compound movement. If all you think about is grabbing, then when you encounter smoke, you're not going to be able to do anything with it, because all you can think about is grabbing. But if you can figure out different ways to approach things, you can probably get a lot more out of smoke, or at least understand it better. You think getting a PhD in sexology is going to help you make someone come really good on that uplifting, ascending mystical level? It's just repulsive to me. Because people aren't static. That's another thing. And that's another, getting into typology for a second, that's another ascended or higher typology level. Yes, there are distinct types, but you get the most out of typology not by trying to force people to be specific things you think they are, you think they should be. You get the most out of it by using it like theory in literature. There are definites, but they're obscured and they're always moving around within their zones. So you're best off interpreting, using the system interpretively, and developing your ability to interpret effectively. That's what sexuality, especially fetishy sexuality, is to me. It's it's like Ulysses, and institutional BDSM is like trying to do Ulysses like a crossword. You're missing the point, you're wrong, and you aren't developing the skills or accessing this opportunity. And sexuality is a wonderful opportunity. Learning someone and being learned, and thereby learning about reality. Don't you want to feel connected with the intangible? Not just feel connected, but at some point be connected with the intangible and see receipts wherever they end up. It really is some as above, so below shit. Sexuality is a microcosm. It teaches you about the way important things work. And that probably is exactly why institutional BDSM and other bullshit like it exists. We're both, or both outlooks, are spins on whatever it is we're supposed to be learning on this level. Extrapolation. Language is a faulty bridge to truth. Sexuality, I think, is a better bridge to truth. One of many. We could go on about this forever because language is so faulty, but in that loose mapping way, I hope you get what I'm saying. High-end sexuality helps train you to move toward high-end truth or high-end mysticism, and specifically because so many things are there. It's patterns, it's consistency, but it's also inconsistency. It's all these contradictions. You learn how the intangible tangibilizes. Sexuality teaches you how to do that. So when you have systems like institutional BDSM, they aren't just limiting you, they're destroying your ability. They destroy the ability to learn the skills that will take you higher, not to mention the human element. And it's like the sexual wing of all the bullshit we're opposed to. The dumb hubris of humanity. Failing to comprehend the higher and ruining life on this plane, the lower. It's a war. It's all a war. It's a war on your ability, or the ability in general, to connect intuitively with things we can't comprehend but are there. If your cum game is good enough to key in to levels of people or layers of people they didn't even know they had, and if someone else's cum game is good enough to hit you on levels you didn't know you had, one, there's more to you than you realize, and two, there's more out there than you realize, and you can connect with it. If you stop trying to force what you think should be, and instead accept what is, even if you don't totally understand it now. Or maybe even ever. But you can still attune with parts of it. And thinking about it, we should run a little study at some point. I'm willing to bet seeker type people are born naturally with fucked up sexualities. I'm sure it wouldn't be the case in all cases, but I'm willing to bet there's got to be some correlation there. Anyway, this has been a long way to say traditional BDSM is garbage. It offends me on a physical level, a spiritual level, and an emotional level too. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.